this is Photosynthetic. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Grower. Today, we've got a very exciting guest. Chris from the Redbud Soil Company is here to chat. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Really stoked to have you here on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Glad I could come here and just talk about growing and share knowledge.
And, you know, I think the exciting thing for me is we haven't had anybody more on the commercial side on the show yet. So I'm really excited to hear your stories and just talk about your experiences doing things a little bit bigger than most of us do.
Yep.
Now, before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items. Guys, if you are a fan of the show and want to show some support, head on over to Patreon. There's a link below. You can send me a couple of bucks if you want to help, on a monthly basis. Otherwise, Chris, let's get talking about some growing and what it's like to grow on a commercial scale, as well as looking after a, soil company. But before we really get into that, tell me about yourself. How you got started. Break down that life story in 60 seconds, the abridged version, if you will.
Yeah. I started gardening seriously about 12 years ago. And when I say gardening, I mean gardening in general, because I enjoy growing food as much as I enjoy growing cannabis. I feel like there's a disconnect in the cannabis industry, unfortunately, where people don't value growing other crops. And I find that sad, but hopefully that will get more prevalent with time. So about 12 years ago, I just started growing plants in general very seriously. I tried a year or two before that, but I didn't take it seriously. And then I got very, very serious. And, I ended up starting to grow hundreds of pounds of my own food a year, my own organic cannabis, supplying enough for me and my family or whoever needed it at the time. And I just started taking it more serious than I did a few years before that. And I just wanted to try to learn as much as possible about what I was doing so that I could have the best repeatable outcomes possible. And that ended up me making my own soils and blah, 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 and then a soil company and, all of that. So here we are today.
And here we are. So let's talk a little bit about Redbud, the soil company, as it were, how that came to be your co-owner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So me and my business partner started Redbud here in Oklahoma. I'm originally from Oklahoma. I moved away and I started gardening very seriously once I moved away because the laws here were very strict at the time. And I started with Fox Farm, very first grow. And it just failed miserably. I got some bud, but it just sucked. It was awful. And it just seemed hard and it seemed like a lot of work. And so then that got me to use another local brand at the time I tried and it didn't work well. And so that got me into starting to make my own soils. And then I just messed with, making my own soils it took me about a solid 10 years to get to where we're not. And I say that we just made changes in our soil just recently. So it's constantly evolving.
It has to.
Yeah. So after years of doing all of that, Oklahoma legalized medical cannabis. It's pretty wide open here. It's a reasonable cost to get in for the average person. And it made sense to open up the soil company here. And so that's what we've done. And we're going on our third year here, making living soil. We have a lot of tons of commercial growers and thousands and thousands of home growers using our soil successfully and using it year over year, not having to spend money on inputs as much as replacing your soil and retaining water, moisture, things like that. There's so many benefits to it, but it seems to have caught on really well in Oklahoma, and we weren't sure if it was going to, just because Oklahoma is Oklahoma. It's definitely like a older cowboy vibe here, but I feel like that deep-rooted farmer vibe that's in Oklahoma is kind of going towards where there's so many people interested in soil here. And so it has helped us establish ourselves and help us just grow as a company. And it's nice to see a state using so much soil, whereas like in Colorado where I was living, hydro is just so prevalent, it's unfortunate. So.
People are loving the organics. The message is really starting to take hold. I'm getting a lot of viewers myself just because that's the style that I choose to grow. So you mentioned Fox Farms and of course building
Yeah.
your own soil. Have you always been the organic side of things? Did you start with the bottles? How did that
I don't
go?
even know how to use a bottle. I don't know how to use, I don't know all that stuff that I don't know how to do any of that. Like if I had to grow hydro, and I don't care what the easiest way to grow hydro is, I don't know what that is. I would not be able to do it. I don't know what to meter. I don't know what to measure. I don't know. I don't know any of that. I just knew that this was the route I wanted to go, and I've stuck to it the whole time. And I don't see myself veering from it anytime soon.
Absolutely. It's a system that's been in place for hundreds of millions of years. So
Yep.
why change it?
Yep.
So you're out in the grower room, Chris, and you're reaching
I
for
am.
that favorite tool. What is it? What do you like?
Currently, this is my favorite tool that I think everybody should be using, regardless if you're a home grower or a commercial grower. It's an aerometer tensiometer.
Absolutely. How wet is that soil?
Yeah, exactly. And we actually are just now finally got set up to be a distributor for aerometer. It took a little bit of work to make them do that because they really like deal with like big ag companies, and they aren't really hyped to be in the cannabis space at all. They don't really care. So it took a while, and now we finally got set up. We have an order coming in, and I think that's a game changer for everybody because there's no guessing at all. It's very robust. You're not going to break it. It doesn't matter if you get it wet. There's a lot of benefits to it, and they're very reasonably priced. $110, $120 depending on the model you pick. I think that's some pretty cheap insurance, and you'll see the difference in your plants when you use it.
I couldn't agree more. I myself, I've got a blue mat system installed now. I do monitor the pressure in the soil using the blue mats tensiometers. And just to touch on that, the one thing that I do find annoying is you can't actually get them wet. So the tool that you're talking about,
exactly.
I'm unfamiliar, but it definitely sounds like the way to go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about growing in general. Now you've got a large space. You guys are a commercial facility as well. How many plants are you doing at any given time? What's your flower room like? Let's talk about the big space.
Okay. I don't think this is big at all. I consider this really small personally. So I wouldn't ever want to say that it's large. But we have 35 flower lights is all we have, 35 4x4 soil beds. Currently we're flowering 175 plants, but we're doing 5 plants a bed this run. Next run, we're doing 6 plants a bed. So it's going to be 200 something plants in there. And then behind me, you can see we have racks for veg, and that is actually also getting ready to supply our half acre of outdoor that we're getting ready to do outside. And so currently right now, we have like, I don't know, 500-600 plants going, something like that.
That's for a guy like myself, that's huge, so I'm limited to just under 20.
Yeah. No, it's a lot to take care of. It's more work than people think.
Yep.
Especially once you're in flower and you have to de-leaf and just take care of things and maintain and watering. And we haven't installed blue mats yet in the flower room, and we're going to do that to cut out some labor and just have constant watering. But I really wanted to use the tensiometer, and we're using, I actually have behind me a tank with a diaphragm pump, and it's all plumbed into our flower room. And we also have just straight water plumbed in there. So we can just quick couple of hose on the wall and just water. And so, yes, it is still hand watering, but it's the most automated hand watering we could think of because I wanted to really get used to the soil and the tensiometer and really see what we're doing and look at the plant response, at least in one full cycle before we transition over to blue mats in here. Because then once we know what everything should be like, it's going to be easier for us to spot issues if a blue mats isn't watering enough or is it watering too much or something like that.
The pragmatic approach. Definitely the way to go. So one of the other questions I really wanted to talk about is what do you think that people are not doing enough of when they're growing cannabis? What are they missing out on?
I think that's a good one. I think too many people think they know everything. I think that you should, and maybe I'm older now, I'm in my mid 40s. That hurts to say, but you need to know your limitations. You need to know when it's worth, especially when you get bigger, you need to know when it's worth paying somebody for some advice or just talking with friends that are doing the same thing as you and just don't always think you know everything. And I think you'll be way far ahead. And don't think that also there's always one answer, because there's a million ways to skin a cat. And you just do what works for you. And that's what's most important. It doesn't matter if there's 1,000 other people that say what you're doing doesn't work. As long as it works for you, just do it.
That's fantastic advice. And, I couldn't agree with you more on that. There's so many different ways to grow and so many different ways to approach it. And one of the things I think a lot of people have to deal with, of course, is pests. Now,
Yes.
on such a large scale, Chris, what do you guys do for IPM?
Man, what's funny? What's funny is the pests we deal with here. What do you think the top pests we're dealing with? Let's see if you can guess them.
Yeah, let's go with the classic fungus gnat.
No, I don't even have one fungus gnat in the whole facility.
Yeah.
Termites and ants.
No kidding, eh?
Yep. That's our biggest issue here is termites and ants. And you got to really be wary of ants, because ants like to farm aphids, and then you go down that whole rabbit hole. And so we really try to stay on top of that and trying to, we only use natural methods to take care of everything. You have to really be on top of it. You have to pay attention. We did have one soil bed in the grow about 2 months ago that started to try to get fully colonized by ants. And so we have rocks sitting on top of the soil for the critters to hang out under. And so I flipped up a rock and you could see ants colonizing under there. And so my go-to is cornstarch. Usually within 10 to 14 days, you can apply cornstarch, they'll eat it, they'll take it back, and it'll kill everybody off. And so I actually got lucky. Yeah, it works real well. It does. And it's obviously natural, and there's not going to be any issues with testing or anything like that. And you don't need a lot of it. But I was lucky enough to find the queen ant, and I cut her in half because she was hiding up in the nook of the rock. They were gone. They literally all left because they don't have anybody to control them. So the cornstarch didn't even have time to work. They were gone in a day. So we did another thing, termites. We just had a termite swarm, and now they're starting to calm down. We used orange oil mixed with water, anywhere from 2 to 4 ounces of orange oil in a gallon of water. And you can spray, and it's completely natural. It is phytotoxic though, so it will destroy your plants if you spray it on them. But if you want to spray your baseboards, floors, things like that, it'll mitigate anything like that. Now, as far as traditional IPM, what people think of, we use, I've got good products that I like. I would say my go-to that I don't see enough people using is Sufoil X. The price point and if how effective it is, it blows my mind that even a home grower doesn't buy it. It's $80. I don't know what it is in Canada, but in America, it's about $80 for 2.5 gallons, and it's a 1.5 ounce use rate.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's more than reasonable. It's super reasonable, and it will take care of broad mites, hemp russet mites, spider mites, white flies, powdery mildew, all alike. I think it's a go-to, especially when you scale up price-wise. I think Impede is a great product. Potassium fats, acids, whatever. It's about 125 for 2.5 gallons. I think that's a good product to use as well. I'm actually a fan of Pure Crop One. I've been using them for a while now. And then I think that people need to think more about, we go real heavy on soil-borne pest here. And I spend for this isn't that big, I don't think, but we spend around $1,500 US a month for soil-borne pest IPM.
Wow.
So that consists of using Natural, which is Bacillus strain, Bavaria bassiana, and those are watered in weekly. And then we use 2 different nematodes, one nematode for fungus gnat and root aphids, and then the other nematode is a bacterial feeding nematode to increase nutrient cycling in soil. And that's purely just to increase nutrient cycling. And between those things, and then also we do keep, and you'll see them flying around here because the population is so high, people will come in, they'll think it's a gnat and it's a rove beetle flying and sticking to your face. And so I really try hard to keep our rove beetle population crazy high. I was just over here by this tank and there was 50 rove beetles just walking around on the ground. So I just try to keep those up as high as possible. And then I'm having an issue, I believe because of the Bavaria bassiana, I can't prove that yet, but I'm having an issue with keeping our predator mite populations high in our soil. And so I've been reapplying Stradiolalaps, aka hypoacid smiles. Yeah, and I've been reapplying those once a month, unfortunately. Typically, I'd like to never have to apply those again, but we're not there yet. But our rove beetle population is insane, and so we're getting there at least.
Now, folks, if you're interested, of course, and you should be. Chris has his own YouTube channel where he talks a lot about this stuff, and it's the Redbud Soil Company.
Yep, it is
what they'd search
for. And our blog has a lot of info. You know, a good blog post, which kind of gets glossed over sometimes, is how to grow your own rove beetles. I created a rove beetle farm that you can fit in the size of a shoebox, and you can produce 100 to 200 of your own rove beetles for almost free every single month. So you'll buy rove beetles one time, and you can just do this farm and never have to buy them ever again. And if you want to scale it up, I have had growers take like metal racks and put multiples on there, and they're producing, 10,000 rove beetles for free. And basically, it's the cost of oatmeal, because that's what you're feeding them.
And they're a great beneficial predator to have in the garden. I was fortunate enough to get some show up with compost myself.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've been just flying around lazily, looking like little jays.
Yep. Yep.
So let's take that rove beetle discussion. Let's talk about avocado toast, because that's something I noticed that you did on your channel, and it was like all about the avocado tech. My viewers know all about it. We had Blue on the channel not too long ago, but hadn't seen avocado toast before.
Yep. I just adapted it to what we're doing. I started using rocks in my pots in probably 2015, right around there, maybe 14, but probably we'll say 15 to be safe. And so at that point, I was using clusters of quartz crystals that were probably, here, we'll use this for scale, probably about that big. So each pot would get this massive quartz crystal. And what I would notice is just the amount of critters that would live in the crevices and how well it worked. And so since then, I've always used some form of rock in my pots or beds, as long as it's big enough, 30-gallon or something like that, or a soil bed. These little 1 gals behind us, you're not going to do that. And so, at this scale, what we did is I had to buy a pallet of rock, and I sourced local rock here from the state. And so we just adapted, the avocado tech, which works very well. I'm glad that, what's it, blue tank?
Blue of green tank.
Blue green tank. Yes, I'm bad with names. I think it's brilliant. It works so well. It keeps rove beetle populations high. It helps with mite populations. Obviously, the worms get in there and do their thing. I mean, it is a wonderful thing. But we had these rocks, and so to me, I was like, we're making avocado toast. And I tested a little bit at our store, and I actually tested it with bowls first. And the bowls work really well, but we already had the rocks, so it didn't make sense to have to add all that. And I just started doing the toast, and it's our go-to. We replenish them about once a month. And I think it is key to helping the rove beetle population stay high. I really do.
So tell me a little bit about the process. You're taking your avocado. Do you add anything to it? A little malted barley flour?
We're not currently doing that, because we're more we're trying to be more precise about what we add to the beds based off soil testing and things like that. And I'm not against that. At a home grow, yes, I would mix all kinds of things with it, and you could put it more, closer to the plant, feed the plant that way. But all we're doing is we actually have stainless steel bowls, cut the avocados in half. We will squeeze out the middles in there. And sometimes we can cut the rind a little bit or the skin and put it in there, and we'll just literally go in there and slather it on. And then if we're in a really big hurry, you can cut them in half, squeeze them on the bottom of the rock, smash that skin into it, and just set it down, and you're still good. You can take as much time as you want with it, but it's all the same outcome. It all gets eaten. And it helps definitely with microarthropod populations, worm populations, things like that.
Absolutely, it's just a great method, and it's so easy.
It is.
Chris, what do you think that the industry could be doing more of to help the home grower out with?
I think, that's a tough one. I feel like a lot of people that are in a position to help a home grower think they're above helping a home grower. And I think that that's pretty sad. I think that you get to a point where you are able to do things at scale, and there's a lot you can teach a home grower that they can use in their own grow. And I feel like people you get busy, and there's a lot of, I have a lot going on. I mean, I have so much going on. But if somebody hits me up on a DM on Instagram and they are thinking about spending $20, I give them the same time as the guy that's thinking about spending $200,000. It's no different to me. I think that's what needs to happen to help the home growers. And I think more content and more, I don't get into specifics as much. And I get people making memes about this, to be perfectly honest, that I don't put out a schedule. I don't tell you exactly what to do. That's not my job. And I think it can be detrimental, because then what I do here won't necessarily work for you, but I can give you the generalized ideas of what we do. And then maybe you can test out one of those and see if it works, and then test out another one and see if it works. And I think too many people in a position like myself can come out with this very stringent schedule and all these products and push it on you and say, this is it. You're going to get what you want out of this. And I think that that's not the way to do it. I know people don't want to, everybody's busy with life and you just want to really grow good weed, right? Everybody does. And you just want it as easy as possible. I think our methods with our soil, I have a lot of customers. I try to make soil as robust as possible. We do have a lot of customers, which I did not intend for it to happen, use water only their first full cycle and grow killer weed. I don't know how much easier it gets than that. But I stay away from trying to dictate and tell people what to do and how to do it. And I think that, again, people with a certain position, whether you have a podcast or you're a commercial grower or whatever, just take the time to talk to people and put the information out. That's why I started doing YouTube, just to put the information out there. Do what you want with it. It's free. I don't make anything from it. I can't monetize it.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
So it's just, and to be honest, we can't make a lot of sales off of it because shipping soil everywhere is too expensive. I can't ship soil to Canada. Trust me, I have people hit me. I have commercial growers in Canada hit me up all the time. I probably had like 5 or 6 in the past month. I can't ship soil there. So it doesn't really, I do it to just share the information, take what you will out of it. Maybe you can apply some of it to your own garden.
The best advice any new grower, I think, can take in is what's working for me, what's working for you, what's working for Jeremy over at Build a Soil there is not necessarily going to be the exact thing that's going to work for you as a grower. You have to take and look at your environment, look at what's going on, and be adaptable.
Yep.
But look and read and listen to guys like Chris and guys like myself who think they know what they're talking about. But ultimately, it's you gotta just have a few failures and have some things go wrong. So you can.
I think that's the biggest. I tell people straight up that they're like, "Well, how'd you learn all this?" And I don't even think I know a lot, because I work with people that know 1,000 times more than me, that are very educated. And it's like, how do you know all this? I fucked up so much shit to get to this point. I killed so much shit. I hermied so many plants. Like I underwatered, I overwatered, I sprayed shit I shouldn't have sprayed, and they just burned them all. I've done it. That's how. Just go get out there, grow plants, screw it up, and learn from your mistakes, and you'll be good.
Learn, grow, repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the worst one. When did it go completely off the rails?
I would say back in the day when I was growing on a smaller scale, but it was to support my family at the time. It wasn't even intentional. It just happened to be that way. The first time I got broad mites, that was just fucked. And this was, I feel like it was 2011 or 12, somewhere around there. And so there wasn't as much information out like now, and there wasn't as many products, and it's easier to deal with now. It's still a pain to get broad mites, definitely, but there's more information and more products geared towards it that makes it easier to fight. And I fought them for about 9 months. Wow. In my garden. And I didn't ever lose a crop. I still got crops. I was still able to get, but definitely diminishing quality, diminishing returns. And at that time, honestly, what worked for me, and it's still, it's a solid product. I know people have their opinions about it. I don't use it now, but it saved me then. It was OG Bio War Foliar. 2 applications, they were gone, and I fought them for 9 months. So props to Caps for that.
Not familiar myself. I've never, fortunately, had to deal with broad mites. I've had spider mites and other pests, of course, and I think most growers will. But it's, sometimes you have to take steps. Yeah. Flip side, what's been the best grow? Looking back, when did it all come together? What was the plan? What was the result? Tell me about the best.
I think this is not going to be the answer people want, but I'm going to give it because this is the best one. 2012, my vegetable garden. I harvested almost 1,000 pounds of food for my family out of my garden.
That's awesome, man.
That's my best crop ever.
Yeah,
And that garden was 20. It was on a rocky hillside. So 26. It was a triangle, 26 by about 20, and then I had an area on a concrete pad, which was my driveway fenced in, which is maybe 20 by 15 or something, and I produced 1,000 pounds of food out of it. And it was, well, if you see it and you just don't, but it's a lot of work. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of planning. And it was a year long, it was the full year you're growing, even at Christmas time, I'm giving people bok choy. I harvested like 20 pounds or 30 pounds of bok choy at Christmas with one sheet of plastic. So that's my best crop ever.
That's awesome. And I just love that because I totally do the veggie gardening myself. I've got my tomatoes going here behind me.
Yeah.
So for somebody looking to start organic gardening, it can be a bit of a daunting task because there's a lot of things going on. You're moving away from pHing the water, for example. Mm-hmm. But where would you recommend somebody to get started?
That's a good question because it's going to depend on what you want to look at your local resources. I get people all the time, they see, our Instagram now doesn't have many followers, but it's been a lot bigger before. And so we get a lot of people contacting us from all over the world. And, we actually have our soil is in Guam, is the farthest place away. But it's not realistic to ship soil far distances. So I always want people to look what you have locally and try to, if you can, honestly, start making your own soils, start messing with it. If you can find a local, and I say local within your region, maybe a living soil manufacturer, start with it to understand the process, and then start mixing your own soils and test them out. That's all I did. I still have pictures from trialing this soil 10 plus years ago. And I have 75 pots, 5-gallon pots, and then 15s over here, which was maybe 10 or 12 15s. And that was all vegetables. And I would have X amount, every row would be a different soil blend, and we'd see how it performed. And then next year we'd narrow it down. Next year we'd narrow it down. And then at the same time, indoors, I was doing the same thing with cannabis. And so that's all I did to do, to make our soil and get where we are now. It's just a lot of trial and error. And I don't think organics should be, we get a lot of people coming in the store because we do have a retail store all the time, and they're new to organics, and they do find it overwhelming, because we use worms and we use predators and things like that. But once every single one of them just starts the process, and what we've learned, and it doesn't matter if it's a home grower in a 4x4, or, I have a customer that's got 30,000 square foot of indoor. I got another customer that's got 500 lights. I don't know what the square footage is, 500 lights of indoor. Doesn't matter. All of that, you start at one place and just get enough information to get it going, and then you got to get a little bit at a time. Because if you come in, I've noticed, if I come in and I tell you every single thing, which isn't possible, every single thing you need to do, you will retain 3% of it. So just start the basics, get it going, and the easiest thing to do is to probably buy a local soil, and then try to get yourself to making your own soil. Everybody can do it. It's totally doable.
Awesome. And I agree. It's definitely the way to go. I like it myself because it puts me in control, puts me more in touch with the overall process, I find. Mm-hmm. So your process for making soil, what are you doing? What do you like for inputs?
Good question. So we make a lot of soil. People are usually shocked by the volume that we produce. But we try to stick to as high a quality inputs as possible, and trying to also keep in mind our end price point for the customer, regardless of their commercial or home grower. And so there's a lot of factors when you're doing it at this scale. Honestly, sourcing compost, our compost piles are 100 yards each, and there might be 10 or 15 of them going at a time. So, this is, I get people like guys on Instagram or something, they're like, oh, you should do this and this on your compost piles. And I'm like, hang on, do you realize that we have 1,000 yards of compost going right now, and you want me to do what? It's going to take how long, and how much is that going to cost? I get it. In your backyard, you can produce the best, highest quality compost or whatever. It's just a different thing. And so there's a lot of different factors. I have taught my guys, I tell them you can't go wrong with the C. So fish meal, fish bone meal, oyster shell flour, crustacean meal. I love kelp on a commercial level. Kelp is starting to become an issue, unfortunately. It sucks. The arsenic is becoming an issue. And so we still use kelp in our soil, but I actually just cut down how much kelp is in our soil just to try to preemptively. My concerns, see, there's other things. I have to factor in now how many commercial people buy for our soil. You know, I have people in Colorado, obviously all over Oklahoma, Maine, we have people in Guam. And so I have to make sure that we are ahead of the curve. So like right now, if arsenic levels, like say in Oklahoma, are 0.2, what if they cut it to 0.1? Are those people are going to be future-proofed using our product? And that's what I think about. I think about all of that all of the time. And so we're constantly looking at our inputs, constantly doing testing to see what the heavy metals are, what the nutrients look like, and seeing what talking to our customers, going out. I go out to farms. We have our own farm. We see what the results are. We see what our tests are. We see what yields are like. We see what quality is like. We see what terpenes are like. We see what our heavy metal content is or isn't or something like that. And there's so many factors. But from somebody starting at home, stick with the C, fish meal, fish bone meal, oyster shell flour, crustacean meal, kelp. You can't go wrong. And then I would say gypsum and basalt are your friends. Gypsum, 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 gypsum.
Yeah, I like that basalt rock test too,
Yep.
just for the additional micronutrients that you get.
Yep.
Wonderful stuff, wonderful stuff. When you're starting to grow a new strain, what are you looking for? What kind of qualities do you like in a plant?
Man, that's a shitty question because what I like doesn't sell. So
okay, know your customer too. Know your customer. Yeah.
It's unfortunate. So like basically here's what I tell everybody. Everything now is just cookies. It's all cookies. Everything has cookies just in it. Here's cookies and we can sell it. It's got a purple tint. Cookies, sell it. I would prefer sativa dominant, something more landracey, something that takes forever to flower, something that people just don't even get what they're missing because most people nowadays haven't even ever had that. And that's all I came up on was growing sativa dominant. And it was just like putting your dick in the dirt when you smoked it. And you could smoke with super veteran people and they're just like, it blows them away because it's all these polyhybrids and now it's all polyhybrids that are cookies. And to me, it's all cookies. I tell everybody that all the time. They're like, show me a picture. Yeah, it's still cookies, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it. They're good. But I feel like for me, sativa dominant landracey stuff is the way to go. But then from a commercial level, I get why people don't do it. How are you going to flower something for 14 fucking weeks and make money off of it when it yields nothing, you know? So
and you can do almost 2 runs there.
Yeah, eventually it comes down to economics, and that's why we end up with it's all cookies and they flower really fast. I mean, I have this strain right now, kickflip number 7, and we're not even at 8 weeks and we're already checking trichomes. And it's crazy to me. It's crazy. I would never pull anything that soon, ever. My average flower for personal would always be 70 days, just hard rule. And now it's like a lot of these cookies derivatives. I mean, we're checking trichomes like every day, looking at it, and it's going to be done really soon. And to me, that's craziness, but it's what the market dictates, and that's what you do.
I was watching one of your videos last night, one of your most recent garden tours, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's you're saying 7 weeks. I'm like, man, those things looking like they're done. So it's you know, just the speed at things happen.
Yep.
What about autoflowers? You guys play with autoflowers at all?
I was going to grow some autos this year. This is fun. This is a great question. I grew autoflowers when there was lowrider and lemon skunk. That was the 2 autoflowers in the entire world at the time. That was it. So that was my first foray into autoflowers. And at the time, they get about that tall. Let's see, about that tall. And they were done in 60-ish days. The potency was not there. It was awful. It just nobody. I mean, there's 2 strains in the whole world. You know, other than I'm sure there's stuff in Russia, but like you know, actually at seed banks available. You know, this was 12 years ago or so. And I did grow them then, and they were interesting. I still find them interesting. I think they have their place, and I like where they're going. I was going to do some in my backyard actually this year, but I just don't have the time. I have too much going on, and I just can't fulfill that this year. But I like where it's going. I do see what they're doing. And once they breed the traits out of it just flowering anytime it gets pissed off, once they get rid of that, I think autoflowers will be very normal and probably very mainstream, because the average person can get a feminized autoflower. Maybe the THC content will be a little different, CBD will be a little different, or whatever, but overall it'll be a pretty homogeneous result and not a lot of work. For instance, why I was going to do them in my backyard is right out front in my neighbor's yard, there's this super duper crazy bright street light. So I was like, this is perfect. I'll just throw some autoflowers back here and let's see what happens, you know? And so I think they have their place. I used to dog on them, just straight up. I used to dog on them a lot. And now I see where they've come, and I see that they're going to have a big place in the future of cannabis, and especially for the home growers. I think they have a lot of potential. At this scale, you can't, I don't know how you can do it yet. I've seen people try it and it did not work out very well. But I think for the home grower, I think they're getting close. Oh, here's a rogue beetle flying in front of me. I think they're getting close with getting those traits, you know, where if it hits the side of if the roots hit the side of the container or something like that, it starts flowering. Or if I've seen somebody, they were moving it and they dropped it and it flowered. So once they get that out, I think they're going to have a big future. I really do.
Yeah, root resistance is the big thing for autoflowers, and trying to maintain that, you say sidewall or not hitting the bottom of the pot. But there's growers out there. Sorry, hold on a second here. Grower room alarm. That's okay. We're good. Hey, I got stuff going on myself, but no, that root resistance, it's definitely an issue. And when you look at some of these guys out there, Bill Ward is one that I follow. Anybody who's not seen his channel, I totally recommend checking out. That guy does amazing things with autoflowers. He's grown. If I didn't know better, I would have thought they were photos. Yeah. Just wonderful plants. So. You touched on it a little bit, one of the strains that you've got going on, but what's going on in the grow in general? You guys are getting close to doing a big harvest here soon.
We are. We're going to probably start harvesting one strain at the end of this week. And then after that, it'll just follow every half week to a week. I think strains will start coming online. And then I think the last will be a gelato cake. It looks like it. I've grown this cut. It's from Denver. I got it from a guy here. He brought it from Denver, and I actually had the same cut in Denver. And it's going to be a hard 70 days. So that'll be the last thing that we harvest. But it's going. This is our first run. We've had tons of hiccups, and I have tried to show along the way as best I can all the shit we fucked up, all the things that have gone wrong. I am so fucking tired of looking at everybody's perfect grow on Instagram, and you know damn well it's not perfect. I mean, it's you know what? Here's what it is. So on Instagram, it started with females, and they had this Instagram look to them, and they do all the filters, and they wear certain clothes, and they do certain makeup, and they do certain angles with their pictures, and then you see them in person, and it's a different fucking person. These grows are Instagram girls, and it just needs to go away. We all need to get real. Nothing's fucking perfect. People get spider mites. People get powdery mildew. People have, God, our ACs have gone out. Our Troll Master went out on a Sunday night. All the flower room was in dark for 18 hours. Couldn't do anything about it till Monday morning. Troll Master basically told me to get fucked. Okay, I mean, this is all real shit that happens, and we need to share these experiences, because there's this it's no different than I have daughters. They look at these people and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, you don't look like that. That's not real. And that's what these grows are, you know? Yes, there are some that look that good. But buy and hold, you know, most grows have issues. It's just going to happen. And we need to share that and talk about it and how we fix those issues. And so that way we can help, you know, the whole community, whether it's organics, hydro, or whatever it is. We need to be real and get rid of all the Instagram bullshit and just lay it on the table. You know, it just is what it is. We're just all trying to do the best we can, and we're not in control of Mother Nature. She ultimately will kick our fucking ass if she wants to. And we just try to steer her in the direction we want.
Awesome. So, Chris, let's talk prohibition for a minute here. Now, you guys have gone medically illegal in Oklahoma. Yep. Mm-hmm. Is the push going on to full rec? And
it's definitely in the works. About that? Yeah, it's already in the works. There's a bill up right now in Oklahoma for the state to vote on rec in November 2022. It hasn't passed but I think it'll pass. The tax dollars are just too immense for them to say no to it. I don't believe, so I think you need to look at it as a whole. I am not just hey, cannabis needs to be legal. I think cannabis is way overregulated. I think it's bullshit. I think everybody can, if I can grow, here's what I've said, at least in America, I can grow 1,000 tomato plants and I can own 1,000 guns, but I can grow 6 cannabis plants. Okay, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
Yeah.
You know, I think as a whole, what Colorado has recently done, what Oregon's recently done, they've decriminalized all drugs. I think that's a good start. I think cannabis is way too regulated. I think testing cannabis is good, but I just saw somebody post on Instagram a test of a pack of Marlboros. They sent it to a cannabis testing lab. And I think that tells you the real story about how things play, and that Marlboros are full of heavy metals, and they're full of pesticides, and that there's no way that Marlboro could pass cannabis testing, and it's too stringent. And I say that from an organic, I believe in testing. I believe in some form of regulation. We don't want people to get sick, but from organic standards, you can use too much kelp meal and you'll fail a test for arsenic. But I can go eat sushi wrapped in that same kelp and it's 100% legal. So I don't know. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I am more of a all drugs need to be legal person. I really think the push right now for psychedelics to be legal is, you know, that has me very excited. I think they're very beneficial to a lot of people. And there's just so many benefits to a lot of different substances that unfortunately have been, you know, prohibited for way too long. And cannabis is one of them. But finally, cannabis is starting to come out, and you know, it's hyper regulated. But other than that, it's going in an okay direction, I guess.
Yeah, at least it's going in a direction. But
Yeah.
do you think it's going to happen at a federal level anytime soon?
Nah, no, not in America. No. Has anybody watched Joe Biden? Like, anybody who thought Joe Biden was going to legalize weed was just crazy. He is so conservative. I mean, he's like 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a different mindset. So I think at best they'll decriminalize, which is something at a federal level. And then that'll open up banking and all these, you know, credit card processing, things like that. It'll open up maybe we can do some interstate commerce, you know, things like that with cannabis products. That would be cool. So I think that's best what we'll see. I don't see federal legalization anytime soon. And what people don't think about is once it's federally legal, how fast does the federal government do anything? That shit's going to take forever. So like, let's say in 2022, they federally, it'll be like 5 years down the road before it's all really implemented. So I don't anticipate it going that way. And honestly, once it does, I think the other unintended consequences is like this grow I'm in right now, we couldn't do it. We don't have enough capital to be federally, whatever those federal rules are going to be, whatever those regulations are going to be, there's no way a smaller grow can do it. They're going to just be monster, giant, mega grows. So anybody that's really pushing for federal legalization, that's in the cannabis industry, especially in the grow space, you're pushing to have your own job probably cut or work for a giant corporation that's going to pay you a shit wage and put out a shit product.
One of my recent guests, Chad Westport, really kind of brought in the corporate side of things, in that when corporate can control it, that's when it'll become federally legal.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're getting at there.
Yeah.
For someone who is looking to just start growing, what would be the number one tip that you would give them?
I see too many people overthinking it.
Yeah.
They're too scared to mess it up. And I get it if you know, economically you're risking, let's say $200 is a lot for for you to risk. Okay, I get that. That does make sense. But ultimately the best way to learn is just get in there and pick a direction to go, and you're going to fail along the way. It's just going to happen. Everybody fails all the time. Again, it goes back to the whole Instagram thing. There's people failing all the time and they just don't share it with you. So don't be afraid to fail and learn from your failures and take notes, take pictures. If you look at the pictures on my phone, it's fucking ridiculous. You know, I take pictures of everything. I'll walk by. So in our grow now, we were underwatering based off what a barometer told us to gauge the water meter by. And so we were sticking at that, and I could tell it wasn't the best, but like, let's write it out. Let's see. That's why we're doing it, right? Now, I guess this is a lot at stake to take a chance, but it is what it is. And so we noticed some of the plants. I noticed this one plant. I just walked by it. And I was like, something's off with that. And so I take a picture of it and I look at the date. I take 3 or 4 pictures. I come get my grower. It's like, look at this. Is there anything wrong with this? Ah, it looks fine. And then I show my wife, because my wife has been in tune with everything I've been doing for all these years. And I show her a picture. She's like, and she's really good at spotting shit. I'm like, does this look good? She's like, it looks fine. 3 days later, that plant had a little bit of yellowing on some of the leaves. And you started to see it. It took about 7 or 9 days from the time I took that first pic. And every day I saw that plant, I took another picture. And all it took is 3 or 4 pictures in a row. You could see it wasn't a big change. It was very, very slight, but you could see it in real time. And so I just catalog what you're doing, take a bunch of pictures, take notes, whether it's in your phone, on a computer, or if you like to handwrite, and just learn from your experiences and just observe. You know, I've taught my grower here, when you come in for the day, go in the room and walk around and look at plants for like 30 minutes to an hour. Don't do anything else. Don't have your fucking headphones in. Don't talk on your phone. Just be there with the plants and walk around and look at shit. And if you see something off, take a picture of it, record it, and let's talk about it. And we just learn as we go, and that's all you can do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Chris, you have a unique outlook, I think, because of course, you run a soil company, you run a big grow, or as you said yourself, you make sure the plants don't die.
I do.
But what do you think the next big thing for cannabis is going to be? Where are we heading over the next 5 years?
I think something I find interesting is the fact that people are starting to mix cannabis edibles with psilocybin. I think that there is going to be a synergy there, and I think there's going to be a lot of mental health issues that can be helped with that synergy, and I'm pretty excited about that. I think mushrooms hold a lot of power for the brain, and I know cannabis is good for a lot of people. My wife has Lyme disease. She uses cannabis just to function. But I think from a mental health standpoint, when you mix in psilocybin with cannabis, I think we're going to see a lot of crazy good stuff happening for people. And again, what's cool about it is you can grow psilocybin at your house in a tote. You can grow cannabis in a tent at your house. We don't have to rely on a corporation. You don't have to rely on a grow like this. You don't have to buy anything. Do that shit yourself. Let some big company do the research or whatever, and then just do it yourself.
Awesome. And everybody should. I don't care if you're using a bottle. I don't care how you're doing it.
I agree.
Get growing. Just get growing and look at the results. Do it organically if you can, because that's the way to do it. But at least in my opinion. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Totally appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a super busy guy. If people are looking for you and they want to find out more, how do they get at you?
Instagram at Redbud Soil Company. Our website has a ton of info, products, redbudsoilcompany.com. And then our YouTube, just look up Redbud Soil Company, and I post from our grow at least once a week from there. And I talk about the good and the bad, and I'm real. And I try to share as much as I can and help as many people as possible.
Great. I think that if we can have more people doing what you're doing, Chris, we're all going to be better for it. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Guys, go check him out. Check out his YouTube channel. Check out the website. I've been watching a bunch of his videos and learned some great stuff. Chris, thanks again. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We out.